in the stream. So Red Black Rock, very updated from the last time we've played it. A deck we've played a lot on the stream in the past. I, like many other players, are choosing to either play Blood Moon or Leyline Binding these days, and so this is one of those good Blood Moon decks. I know that there's a big question of to scam or not to scam. I think the scam variants are obviously very good. There's really nothing wrong with them, but I do think that this version is a bit more consistent. I'm a bit more comfortable with it too, and it's also true like these versions are putting up a lot of results lately, the non-scam versions, and I think that between the two decks, it's kind of a question of like power level versus consistency, and also like a better quality of top decks too. Where we saw this yesterday, but like scam top decks really badly. It's a deck full of griefs and Malak Rebirths, Feign Deaths, and the fact that this deck just has like really good top decks, is definitely like a big point for it, and like has in that sense a much better late game too. Splash white for Wear Tear. I think when you're playing Blood Moon, I'm not like really into the white splash. Something if Fury is crazy, it can be. Some matchups it doesn't do anything, but yeah, Fury's a good top deck. But like the scam deck has like 12 non-land terrible top decks. You know what I mean? Like that is like a crazy number. Like not even counting Thoughtseizes, so like maybe even closer to 15, and that's not even including lands. That card is so likely to just be 2 mana. You discard 1 card, which is not good. It's really good when 1 card at random. It's really good when you hit 2 non-lands, but 2 high variants for sure. No Din. I think with the Blood Moons I'm off of Din, which is always kind of the question of like to Din or to Blood Moon, I think, and Blood Moon at the moment. Yeah, you can play Whispers of Emrakul instead. Which I have played and not liked. The stupid taskbar is always so bugged. Just like it just doesn't work. I can't full screen. I just have to toggle it until it like decides to function. Delirium's not feasible unless you're on DRC. Yeah, you have to play DRC. Listen, I don't think you should play either. You can play one if you want to. I'm gonna take the 1 mana spell. I'm on Windows 10. I maybe will upgrade eventually, but it'll be a while. Just tend to not like to have to deal. Like I heard that Windows 11 is like bad for streaming. Like there's bugs with it, and I'm just gonna be chilling until I'm confident those are fixed. Windows 11 taskbar is worse. Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of stuff. I kind of like Castle Locktwain over Takenuma. Well, what I like about Takenuma over Castle Locktwain is that this is a Blood Moon deck, and the channel lands can give you utility when you have Blood Moon in play. I think that's something I value pretty highly. I do think Takenuma is the worst channel land, but this deck also has a lot of legends, and so it's like marginally better in this list than it is in other ones as well. I think we just play second Voidwalker, push. Feels really good to be playing this deck again. It's been too long. Is Takenuma worse than Sokenzan? I'm playing one of each. It is worse than Sokenzan, yeah, but I'm playing one of each. I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking. Okay, so if they played their other Brawler, I think I'll likely just be bolting the Brawler. Let's go and see what they discard to Kroxa first. No Squee. Yeah, I'm definitely lower on Squee now than I was for a little while. You can still play a Squee, but it's also like... I think it is less powerful than your other 3 mana options. Could hold up Remand. We'll just bolt. Too much damage. Yeah, I mean, I think Pyro's really good, and like Squee is definitely like mid for 3 mana. It's not that good for 3 mana, but what's nice is like in the late game it scales better. But I've just kind of started to value that a little less, I guess. The card is definitely like playable. It has home. It will, it likely has a home in the format, but figuring out exactly where to play it is tough. I also feel like this deck is like a slightly better Kroxa deck too, where you just play more cheap spells, more 1-for-1s. Maybe that's not true, but they're both like pretty good Kroxa decks. Okay, Blood Moon is very good in this matchup. Oh, one thing too, this is Dingo tech. I think Surgical is pretty good. against creativity specifically, but with all the discard. Good against the linear spell-based combo decks. Isn't Squee better with Leyline Binding? I would say Squee is worse with Leyline Binding in the format. I wouldn't say better. Bring a Terminate, cut a Hearse. Don't think I want Hidetsugu Consumes All. Don't think I want Explosives. Tourach's okay. Tourach's also, I think, really good in the binding metagame. It's hard to play too many copies with Blood Moon. Right. Love to have Blood Moon in this matchup. Turn 1 Ragavan as well. Just good hand overall. Potentially can Shinka the Ragavan. Was it surgical over? Yeah, that's kind of the idea. And then surgical has like extra value, obviously, where against, you know, against there's tons of decks in Modern that are just like built to around one card: Crashing Footfalls, Living In, Primeval Titan, Creativity, and so like in all of these matchups with it, like you know, like just like being able to like play discard spell, surgical, that one card is pretty nice. Maybe you're not bringing in the full 3 in all of those matchups, but some number is definitely interesting to me. Is Graven Cairns better than the 4th Blood Crypt? I think with so many 1-drops, I would say probably not. It's a conversation. The mana with this deck is always a little weird. Yeah, I mean, it's just definitely the Kavu. And then I'll play the Catacombs, so if I draw another black fetch, I can, or swamp, I could get 2 swamps into play. If I play Cleansing Wildfire of Mill with Surgical, it's very soon on my list to play. I will play that any day now. Blood Moon, very good against Domain. If they drew exactly Stubborn Denial, good beats. They're trying to binding it. They're gonna learn today. They're gonna learn today that Leyline Binding is like not even good. Leyline Binding, is that a good Modern card? Okay, that's a very good top deck, although we get to shut it down pretty well with the Spyro. Maybe Thoughtseize it also if we wanted to. But very notably, this does give them a white source, so once they get up to 5 mana, they can Binding the Blood Moon. But I can also Thoughtseize the Binding. So, yeah, their hand is the Shoba Brawler Binding at the moment. Let's prioritize Thoughtseizing the Binding. Man, Binding was actually good all along, huh? Alright, pretty good rips. They cash in their treasure for another brawler just to be as aggressive as possible. I think that's a fine line to take. There it is. Ragavan mystery card. Definitely doing pretty good. If they dash Ragavan, I'll trade Ragavan's. Absorb 1 damage with the Spyro. They pack it in 1-0. The keepable hand. Definitely a hand that we prefer to be on the play with. Always nice to have Spyro plus Kroxa, though. We have, you know, no 1-drop, but a deck full of 1-mana spells. Into at least, you know, Voidwalker into Blood Moon. Post-sport, 25 months. Thank you. When do you prefer Seasoned Pyromancer over Fable and the other way around? It's a good question. It's not exactly like 1-for-1 or like... Ooh, interesting. So for the most part, I like Fable of the Mirror Breaker when you have artifact synergies. Your deck doesn't want to play any creatures because you're playing creativity. When you're playing Rin and 6, you get to loot away those extra lands. Where like it's better to loot away lands with Fable than it is for Seasoned Pyromancer. And then obviously when you have good cards to copy with Fable. So in this deck, you don't have very few things that are good to copy with Fable. It's like Seasoned Pyromancer and Voidwalker is okay. Much better to be copying like Furies, Greaves, Urza Saga tokens. I also like do prefer Seasoned Pyromancer if your deck has cards like Unearth, Ephemerate, Malakir Rebirth, Feign Death. But also like, you know, this I think this factor is like less relevant, but to some extent this deck is trying to like out top deck your opponents, and I think Fable is like a better turn 3 play as like a more powerful play, but I think that Seasoned Pyromancer is the better top deck, and I think that is, you know, an element at play as well. But the 2-mana Unearth and red-white Javier Stoneblade. I don't know. Like, I feel like the Stoneblade deck is very good at grinding. This is a card that helps you in the grindy matchups, not the more linear ones. It's a card to consider. It's good with Ranger Captain. I don't hate it. Nor do I love it. Okay, I think we'll go Thoughtseize into Kroxa. Obviously, they could rebuke the Thoughtseize. Yeah, it did feel like they had another one of those. But now they're just down to one card in their hand. Yeah, you can play both Fable and Seasoned Pyromancer in some decks for sure. Okay, this card an Emery. Last card, probably Urza. So it seems like they probably kept Urza, then they hoped to draw the 4th land, and they did draw the 4th land. I guess they could also draw a 0-drop, huh? How good is this Blood Moon here? I mean, cut my opponent off white mana. Let me crack this fetch so that I'm able to kick a Tourach. Cut my opponent off white mana. No Urza Sagas for you. Could be a bit too slow. Like, my opponent gets to spin their Urza now. Pretty interesting turn. New card, Lauren's Escape for Hammer. I'm definitely down to see interesting new cards in the chat. If anybody wants to be linking them. Don't really feel like the Liliana Edict does a ton here. I do like the Seasoned Pyromancers here, sets me up for Kroxa next turn. Not the worst pickup addition. Target artifact or creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Scry 1. Doesn't protect your Urza Sagas. Scry 1 is nice. Seems worse than Blacksmith Skill probably, but I could see you playing like this, like one maybe in some metagames. No double red for Kroxa? Okay, red. Skill isn't in Pioneer. That's true. That's true. So see if the card they discard is something I want to Voidwalker. Okay, I have no idea what this is. Otawara? Okay. It's pretty good. Just dealing them 3 damage at a time, I guess. I've seen a lot of lists play 22 versus 23 lands, something I settled on in testing. Mr. Mingo, think of the 13 months. I usually prefer 23 lands. I mean, it kind of depends on exactly what your list looks like, but you really need to hit your first 3 land drops. You play 4 mana spells. I think you would be on 20, or I'm on 23, right? Maybe I am on 22. No, I'm on 23. Okay. I know. I've also gone back and forth. It just depends on what the curve is, really. Let me doubting myself for a second. I know, it's also true, like, when it comes to, like, the number of lands people play, like I was talking about this with somebody. I think it was Andrea. Like, people just like don't work on mana bases in Modern and Pioneer. Like, oh, well, crazy. Like people just like copy mana bases, copy lists, and like don't really think too much about it. So, like for the most part, like unless you're like sitting down and having a conversation with somebody about it, do not trust people's mana bases. Oh, sorry, I should have these Alpine Moons in the board. They're kind of like a relic of the past. They need to be like the 4th Blood Moon and then something else. Yeah, but like, do not trust people's mana bases. Do not trust people's mana bases. Okay, I think I'll wait for this to see if they're on Thoughtseize or not. Yeah, some people are good at it. Some people do put in the work, but I would not recommend trusting the average mana base that you see on like MTG Goldfish. Oh, sorry, I meant to cut the Hers. But like 1 Liliana, 1 Voidwalker. I don't really ever want to draw 2 of those cards. I really trust Spike Mana's base. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm, you know, it's like definitely true that I'm brewing all the time and I'm getting to list mana bases like oft required tuning. Like they're never perfect at first, but I'd say I'm an above average mana base builder, and I will say that as someone who spends all of my time brewing and talking about lists, the ratio of people giving like feedback and critique on the mana bases to people suggesting grindy 3 and 4 mana spells is really disproportionate to what it should be. People love to talk about like, what if we added a Kolaghan's Command, a Fable of the Mirror Breaker? What if we added generic grindy 3 mana spell versus Spike? I think that, you know, maybe we should play the, someone did say this earlier, we should play maybe the first Graven Cairns over the 4th Blood Crypt. What do you think? I think at least here, like with 16 1 mana spells, you know, I've played, obviously you can play some number of Graven Cairns, but I also like the 4 Blood Crypts a lot. Castle vs. Takenuma. So the thing about Takenuma is it's a utility land that you can use through Blood Moon, which to me feels like so much more relevant. Like Castle is a good card though, but it would probably be like a conversation of Castle versus the Black Legend Fear land, but I also like that card a lot. I love a video on building mana bases. I wrote a long deep dive on Channel Fireball about building mana bases. If I did a video, I would just like mostly be covering content there, I guess. I think some amount of Graven Cairns makes sense since you have the basic resources in 4 Dauthi. Yeah, so I mean, I used to play a lot of Den of the Bugbears, right? I used to play a lot of Den of the Bugbears, and when I was on like 6 red sources, I think it made a lot of sense to play the Urborg, to play the Graven Cairns. Right now, I only have 3 red sources in my 23 land deck. That like, I think the first copy would be fine, but it also doesn't feel like a big priority to me either. Can I give any insight on why no DRC in this list? Well, it's not why no DRC, it's why no DRC and no Bauble. In order to fit DRC and Bauble in the list, you have to, you usually have to cut like 4 Voidwalkers, the Hearse, and then 3 3-drops. And I usually find that I prefer to play Voidwalker plus more 3-drops than 4 Channeler, 4 Bauble. Because Dragon Rage's Channeler is like just not very good without Bauble. I've always thought it would be interesting to see. I always thought it'd be interesting to see like how Channeler performs without Bauble, but okay, so they are on Thoughtseize. So I guess I maybe should have inferred that because we saw the red mana. Okay, so we can fetch a swamp next turn if we draw Blood Moon and still have 2 black sources. I think we'll just play this. And if we're replacing 1 swamp with 1 overgrown tomb for fringe case engineered explosives, I think in a Blood Moon deck that will hurt you more than it'll help you. Especially when the main matchup you want engineered explosives for is Hammer Time, which has nothing besides like 1 random Nettle Cyst that you can crack explosives for 3. If you could give me an example of a matchup that's common in Modern that you want to actually use explosives on 3 in, then you know we can talk some more. But for the most part, I don't think that really exists. Yeah, for sure. We just talked about this, but yeah, when you're building so many mana bases and like you just like, you know, With something like that, like the Wooded Foothills, it's just easy to overlook some things. I always really appreciate the feedback on the mana bases. My main point is that I don't get very much of it. Do I play any other formats besides Modern? I've been playing Pioneer lately, testing for the Atlanta Last Chance qualifiers. Wow, Sentinel Sword, pretty good. Alright, so let's get their last 2 cards out of their library. And hope we can figure out how to beat 5 Thopters at the top deck. It's a weird card. 2 mana 1, 2, artifact, ETB, look at top card. If it's a land, reveal it, put it into your hand. If don't, you can put it into the yard. So you can also put the land in the yard if you want to, not that that's super relevant. Yeah, we have Hidetsugu Consumes All. I wasn't sure if they were on Thopter Sword, so I left like the Pithing Needle and some of the Voidwalkers in the board, but I should have just like realized that they were on Engineer because we saw red mana last game. I wonder if in this matchup we actually just go down on Blood Moons and play more Alpine Moons. I shouldn't have these Alpine Moons in the sideboard. They're just kind of a relic of the past, honestly, but I just kind of like this is my first time playing this version. Did I cover Haywire Might? I mean, I've said that I like that card a lot. I know we can Blood Moon the Saga. We're just not going to beat the Thopter Sword as is at this point in the game. So we'll go to the next game. I'm going to be bringing in more Voidwalkers, cutting the Lilianas. I think we could do something like 1 Blood Moon, 2 Alpine Moon. We can likely go down on the 1 mana creature removal. Like, I think maybe just being on push is fine. Maybe 1 bolt, 3 push. But push kills Urza. Killing Engineer is not that relevant. Killing Sentinel's good. Yeah, then I think 1 Needle is correct as well at this point. Although it's a bit awkward with Hidetsugu Consumes All. Not that big of a tension. Is this any good? Counter target artifact or creature spell. What's this opponent's controls for? Probably not. If it was creature or non-creature, or just spell. Okay, it would just be much better mana leak. I don't know. If it was like creature instant sorcery or creature planeswalker artifact. If you got like 1 more type for Pioneer, it'd be interesting. Okay, just kind of gonna briefly scan through some cards. Hearse, the problem is Hearse is just not that good against Thopter Sword. They can play around it pretty easy. Voidwalker and Needle are much better hate. It's probably a good Pioneer card. I don't know. I feel like missing like Planeswalkers, instant sorceries is really relevant. Enchantments. I could be wrong. If it was just counterspell, I don't know. Pioneer really has a counterspell problem. There's just like Spell Pierce is the best counterspell in the format by a lot. and beyond that, like you have to be like playing cards to enable like Wizard's Retort or Lofty Denial. Whenever Slagstone Refiner, another non-token artifact is put into the graveyard, make a Power Stone. I really wish Power Stones entered untapped. Okay, let's mulligan this. No pressure. Keep this one. I find Alpine Moon is just a moment. I just like missed them in the sideboard. I was rebuilding this list. So like I used to not play Blood Moon. I'm returning to Rakdos after a long time. And just like when rebuilding the list, seeing the Alpine Moons on the board, I'm like, oh yeah, those are cards. I basically always have 2 Moon in the board of Rakdos, forgetting that now I need to be off of them, which we'll be doing for the next league. Make Disappear is underplayed. I don't know, like what deck wants to play Make Disappear? Because like at the very least, like the control decks that play it, like they never get to sack something to connive, really. can sack like a shark token. Or not connive, to copy it. Kind of bummed to not see my opponent play a 1-mana spell when I have Hidetsugu Consumes All in my hand. No, this is not the. This is the non-scam variant of Red Black. It's a deck we've played a lot on the channel. Wait. They reprinted Tron? But on creatures? So this one makes mana if you have all 3. This one gains 3 life if you have all 3. And this one puts 2 counters on itself. It's 5 mana? I guess I don't know. Okay, happy to have the Voidwalker in play to stop the Sword of the Meek. Not thrilled with drawing a second Hidetsugu Consumes All, but 1 should be good because of the Urza Saga at this point at least. What a joke. I don't know, like, this is like a cool limited card. Like, there are 3 commons, you assemble all 3 in limited. That's all it is, right? I made this happen. Oh, my comment of if they reprint Tron in standard, I'll do a 24-hour stream. Does this meet that requirement? Kind of don't think so, chat. I kind of don't feel like it. Can you make a token, please, and play another 1-drop? Thank you. I'm not going to crack this. I would love for them to needle the Mire, and then I just get the Hidetsugu Consumes All. Maybe a portable hole? Alright, this is acceptable. It's exactly what I asked for, even. Sorry, I kind of meant to fetch on my upkeep there, but not the end of the world. Might cast a fairy next turn. We'll see. Love that they missed their land drop last turn too, of course. Okay, I do like that Hidetsugu is going to exile. Oh, sorry, the Voidwalker just exiles all this. We're a bit flooded this game for sure. I think I'm just going to play another Hidetsugu Consumes All. Attack for 3. Could maybe hold up Metallic Rebuke. I think I would do that if they had 1 more mana potentially so I could counter an Urza, but yeah, they're playing Thopter Sword. Yeah, so when does Bro release on Magic Online? Is it this next Wednesday, like usual? Because that's going to be it's gonna be an interesting time. Okay, ending on the Voidwalker. Do I want to channel? I think I'd rather draw something else to do with my mana this turn. Obviously, if I draw 2 more lands, I'll feel miserable. Don't feel great about that. Their hand is 2 4-drops, though, and 1 redundant Sword of the Meek. I think it's for a week later. Specifically heard a bunch of people say they can't test Bro cards or RC. Okay. They drew 1 land, so one more land and an Urza is kind of dicey, although now Fatal Push is going to help against that. Paper release will be 3 or 4 days before digital release. So that means Bro's not coming out for 2 weeks? Like 3 weeks? Pada, 3 months? Thank you. It's weird. Okay, so next Friday is the pre-release. And then the weekend after is Atlanta. I'm gonna mulligan this. Go put back second Thoughtseize, I think. Turns with fresh cards are like more interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's a good enough reason to pre-ban cards for like a week or something. But you would just do a later set release if that's what you wanted. So if they're gonna shock in Blood Crypt, they definitely have removal. They also don't have white mana. I think it's just taking the bolt here. But it's also good to like give people like, you know, the ability to play test games on Magic Online at first, I think, where like if you ban it on Magic Online, but people in paper are able to play test for a week, that kind of gives them a disadvantage, right? If you don't have the resources to test in paper. They do have a swamp in their hand. The Blood Moon's not going to be that good, I think. I guess the big question is, do I want to trade Scourge for Ragavan? I think I'll just Blood Moon. I lock my opponent out of that Giver forever, probably. I stopped them from being able to like fetch and grow Death Shadow, and this gives me a second red source too, so I can go Bolts. Or sorry, Terminate plus Ragavan. Bolts won't kill this. Don't want to dash and then let them hit me again if they have a removal spell for their dash Ragavan. Then is Giver 2 mystery cards after their draw step. No reason to play out second Blood Moon. It's better to hold it to discard to Seasoned Pyromancer or Liliana. And what's cool is their Death Shadows are stranded until they do something like this, draw Street Wraith, but of course I have a Lightning Bolt that can kill a Shadow right now, at least. Not that it seems like they necessarily have one, and if they have one, they're not casting it. MTGO isn't the only play for testing. Pro teams would find their own ways. I mean, I personally, you know, my personal experience is, especially when my first 2 Pro Tours, I had no one to play test with. All my friends, peace and love, either like were out of Magic or like, you know, weren't close by or weren't very good at Magic. And I did 100 drafts on Magic Online for Limited, and I did a ton of testing on Magic Online by myself, and you know, did pretty well even you know, with this strategy. Yeah, they played around Bolt pretty well, huh? Maybe they just drew it. We'll see. But yeah, just not everybody has the resources of a pro team or friends who can play test with you, you know, so just being able to do it by yourself, I think, is pretty valuable. At the very least, the conversation was pre-ban sets until a tournament happens. I think that's just at least a little silly. Alright, let's draw some spells, please. Never mind, just claim to fame, huh? Yeah, where Luris? Where Luris? Hidetsugu seems fine. Terminate seems good. I think we'll probably not play the Blood Moons. Tripping on discard spell seems fine. I guess the cheese Tourachs also seem not that good. One Blood Moon, 5 discard spells. Buying, renting cards online takes resources. Yeah, of course, but it's just like, obviously you have to have some amount of resources to to test for a PT, but what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to take away resources. Why are we talking about this? It just doesn't make sense to take away resources for one player because you think it's cooler that Magic Online players don't get to test as much. Just unlocked by one silly Twitch chat comment. Normal Spying Spike stream. Yeah, I do definitely like how my opponent's playing fast. Cool, fun matchup too. They wouldn't Blood Moon me, would they? Like, no chance, right? Claim their Voidwalker. A 1/1 Scourge. I think I just play out my Hidetsugu. Exile in the graveyard is relevant. They have the fame. And I kind of just want to get max value for my cards before I Seasoned Pyromancer. Good boost, 12 months. Glad you're liking the stream. Appreciate you. Pretty bad against a discard spell. That's a discard spell. Weird that they would play the Kroxa into Hidetsugu, though. Can't really play this Blood Moon. I guess with 2 Kroxas maybe it makes more sense. Can we draw another one of these? Jeez. Right, engineered explosives. No cards in their hand. So this puts me to 1. So I think I just take and try to draw a sweeper. No sweeper. No sweeper, no win. We are on the play for a new match. And I think with 2 Ragavans on the play, I'll keep this hand. GG Wada. Obviously, we're hoping to draw lands, but this is one of those spots where we have 2 Ragavans on the play. It's hard to mulligan. Any insane cards for Brothers War I've been testing already? I don't know how you think I would have been testing cards already when I've had like so many like sick brews on the channel. I do spend some hours of the day not playing Magic, and I never test new cards before they come out on Magic Online. Although I may have to this time for like Atlanta, but I digress. It is flattering that you think that I spend so much time playing Magic that I'm also play testing cards and paper right now. Honestly, this set looks pretty tame. I mean, this is every single. We have quad Voidwalkers. Every single Magic set, it's always like we have people in the chat going, "It looks tame. It looks nuts." I think it looks above average, but you just could never really tell. Atlanta is Pioneer. Atlanta's Pioneer. Okay, the Exile Murktide, which makes sense with me having Dauthi Voidwalker in play. And then they get rid of an Inquisition from the top of my library, which they could cast. They choose not to cast, interestingly. Thoughtseize them. Not too surprised by the Spell Pierce. I'll be pretty surprised if we win this game. This was definitely not a game where I wanted to miss all these land drops. Then they're not doing anything with the Ragavan, so they're going to be sitting back on counter magic, presumably. Surgical's good against mostly creativity, but there's like just a lot of decks in the format that are spell-based combo decks that are just like built around one card. Creativity is certainly the most common. A lot of mana flood, mana screw this league, huh? I think some number of recommission makes it into Heliod combo. Maybe. Maybe. Am I going to play Triple Trick in Atlanta? My current plan is to not declare what I'm going to play in Atlanta. Because I don't know. It's so tough. It's so tough. Like, One of the last RCQs, I sat down against my round 1 opponent, and my round 1 opponent says, "Hey, don't you think it's like a big disadvantage that your opponents know what you're playing when you sit down?" And I was just like, yeah. Yeah, it is. And, I don't know, it just depends. Like, sometimes I'll be able to conceal what deck I'm playing, sometimes I won't be able to. It feels weird, though, because the tournament for Atlanta's open deck list, so, like, if I was qualified, I would obviously just be talking about it and not really tripping too much. But the issue lies in the fact that, I think I'll put one Hidetsugu. The issue lies in the fact that, the LCQs, which I'm not, I'm trying to grind and win, are not open deck list. But that didn't happen in Vegas. I mean, I didn't say what I was playing in Vegas. I would tell everyone something and just not play it. That's actually what I did in Vegas, but not, like, intentionally. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a tough conversation. It definitely does make me like open deck list, though. Like, Andrea was talking about this when he was over too. It's like, it feels really bad when, like, you do and you keep your deck list secret, and then people, like, just tweet about what you're playing, or they do, like, a little coverage interview with you, then all of a sudden everybody knows what you're on. And so, like, open deck lists really solved that problem a lot. What's the thought behind the Voidmere Chow split? So, because you have no, like, counter magic to protect your lock pieces, you want to be able to play out 2 of them at the same time against Cascade decks, which admittedly Cascade decks have been less popular, but I digress. So you can have 2 Void Mirrors and play at the same time. You can go Chalice then Void Mirror, but you can never go Chalice. So that's why I like the split. Does an open deck list give Control Mages advantage? Well, I'll say this. Control Mages and Pioneer need all the advantage they can possibly take. Holy shit, is that deck terrible. That deck is so bad that they can take the freaking advantage. They can take it. That deck is so bad in Pioneer. This is gonna be a lot to fight through. I might take second counterspell. I kind of like taking the Consider too, just chilling, but I'll take a second counterspell. How many LCQs? I don't know. I think they're 32 player on demand. We'll see. I feel like I'll probably be able to play in 3. I will say though, my testing is going well. Blue White and Challenge every weekend. I'm being a little hyperbolic, but boy, that is my opinion though. My opinion is that Blue White is really, really bad in Pioneer. Blue Black may be better. I will also say my testing is going well though. The deck that I'm currently on, I started off 2-0 last night, made some changes to improve the list, and then 4-1 to my next league, so I was 6-1, feeling okay. There's one matchup that I think will be pretty common that's not great, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That was a very good top deck for my opponent. And then I have to kick Tourach. They counterspell them. They hit me with Ragavan. But I have to get the counterspell out of their hand so I can possibly beat the Murktide. Yeah, this thing, Blue-White is okay against mono-green, abysmal against mono-black, abysmal against mono-blue, okay against, mono-red. I think probably pretty bad against mono-white. Maybe it's okay against mono-white, but... Listen, they need all the help they can get. Alright, we need to terminate off the top. Rough couple matches, huh? Another double Ragavan hand on the play. I think it's still keep. This hand's even better because we have more cheap spells. Do you think Teamer or 4-color Rhinos is better? I mean, I think Binding is a pretty ridiculous card. Blood Moon is, I don't know. We've been talking about this some today, but to some extent, the format is a lot about playing Blood Moon or Binding if you're playing a fair deck. There are some exceptions. Maybe. Yeah, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, it's like you play Blood Moon or you play Binding in these fair decks. And so that's what interesting thing about Rhinos is you can play both. So if you really just are in the camp that Blood Moon is just like super duper good and exactly where you need to be, then sure. I wonder if Rugscape Shift can fit Binding into mana. It almost definitely can. It's just really not that hard to play Binding. I will say this. Oh, if you had a second land, would you lead on Thoughtseize? Not with 2 Ragavans. If the second Ragavan was a second land, then possibly. If only unfair decks are played, does that mean that they're fair? I don't know. Like these kind of like terms with Magic are always impossible to talk about with Magic players. Where we're like, well, you have a conversation about fair versus unfair decks, and people will go, Murktide is an unfair deck. Murktide's an unfair deck, and then they'll get a big cheesy grin on their face, and you'll be like, oh well, good point. But you would get Reddit gold for that one, but it's just like doesn't really help our conversation at all. I think I'll play a hearse. That's so much graveyard hate with the surgicals, though. I can bring in a hearse against Murktide. Yeah, hey, Bolt. Okay, so they have their own Ragavan. How is Murktide unfair due to Delve? They're just saying, hey, I hate Murktide. They're just like, not like really that interested in having like a conversation about strategy or whatever. Okay, opponent, please. Pass the turn. In every way, deck has enough. Yeah. Like, I mean, every deck in Modern is trying to do something good and something powerful, and I don't know. It just is usually not a very productive. I don't know. It's just it's kind of hard to have a productive conversation with somebody who's just like interested in getting a zinger, a one-liner, complaining about the format instead of talking about it. Okay. It has been worth it to wait for my opponent to use 4 minutes on these first 2 turns, which are cast Ragavan, cast Voidwalker. It's worth it so that we get to hit our opponent with a Ragavan. Why the Surgicals? I'm playing... They're tech from Dingo against Creativity, although it has definitely felt like Creativity's been less popular the last couple days. I'm still like kind of adjusting to that, to be honest. Where I'm like, my mind is still like, Creativity is so popular, you just have to hedge so much for it. But that seems to be being like less and less of the case. Ooh, we flipped the Thoughtseize. So, but like, I think that they're better than the Orvars. How much do I care if my opponent Blood Moons me? Like a little bit, but I got Swamps in my deck. I got a Ragavan in play. I've noticed Magic players also love saying in a vacuum. Yeah, well, I mean, in a vacuum is the kind of thing Magic players will say to just like make their point better, And because like their argument doesn't like actually make sense in reality, but it makes sense in a vacuum. Because they're not attacking with the Voidwalker. Would be totally okay if they Thoughtseize me here. Yeah. Like there is no, Magic abhors a vacuum. There are no vacuums in Magic. Would Fable have space in the deck? I don't like Fable in this version. I like it in Scam. I like it with Wrenn and 6. I like it with Artifact synergies. But again, it's also like This is also, you know, the only thing that Rock players, I guess we're just roasting every single Magic player today, huh? The only thing Rock players are interested in is talking about the 3 drops and the 1-mana removal split. We're just interested in, Spike, what about this grindy 3-drop? What about this grindy 4-drop? Which is just like, none of them are really all that different from each other, you know? They're all about the same. So that's the roast of the Rock players. Okay. I think I'm gonna cast the Thoughtseize. Like, their Voidwalker just isn't doing anything at the moment. I don't feel like I need to be terminating it. It's like, a Fable of the Mirror Breaker is not going to be that different from a Seasoned Pyromancer or Liliana. I think it's not as good as those cards, not as good as Blood Moon, but like, if you play it, it's not going to just like do nothing for you, obviously. Put 23 lands in the deck. We've had this league has been like, you know, just one of those that's very full of mana flood, very mana screw. And it's tough to play a game like this where you're like very mana screwed against an opponent who is probably lagging really badly. I don't know. It's playing so slow. I define fair as interactive and unfair as non-interactive. Yeah, linear versus non-linear. That is what unfair versus fair means. For sure. Deck tech for Panda. Yeah, it's time to race the Hammer players. The thing is, Hammer players are... Hammer players are probably the best kind, honestly. They're, like, at peace with losing to hates. They're very, like, calculating, analytical players. I don't have much bad to say about them. But also not casting this Inquisition for no reason. Isn't burn both linear and fair? I guess you could describe it that way. Murktide is the unfair deck. Yeah, you could describe it that way. Maybe there's, you know, not a complete separation, but more of a Venn diagram. I'm like so close to conceding this game. Like, I know I'm like raging and screaming at the sky a little bit today, but my opponent is playing so slowly, and it's just going to be like this for another 30 minutes. You know, you just like know they're never ever speeding up. No Kroxa. I'm not really that interested in casting the Kroxa into the Voidwalker. Like, I want my opponent to use the mana on Ragavan this turn, instead of me Kroxa discard Ragavan, so this way if they draw land, they might still Ragavan instead of escaping Seasoned Pyromancer to block my Ragavan. Was my thought. Okay. Ranger Captain Forgiver. Look, the deck is bad. I know that. It's got hero cards and not enough spells. Can't think of a better one-drop, but I need to make Captain and Murktide work. I guess I don't know why you want to... Like, Captain's a good card, Murktide's a good card. I don't know why this is something we need to make work, but I will accept the premise at least. Be a bad precedent, you'll get more slow players. Yeah, I know. But I mean, this is just, like, about as bad as it gets. I'm not going to concede here. Just complaining a little bit more than I do on average. What is that, 8? Ranger Captain Safari. I should have known. I mean, you could play Esper Sentinel over Delver. I know that, like, it'll be better. I don't like these bendings, nor do I understand them. Nor do I like these ops. Like, Mending is not a good card to, like, delve over with Murktide. You're not wanting to discard your spells either. I mean, can you not just play 4 Counterspell, 4 Ending, 4 Charm, 4 Consider, 3 Spell Pierce. Surely there's got to be one more spell to play. It's definitely Spell Pierce. Definitely Spell Pierce. Shredder Bobble. Yeah, I mean, so like, yeah, like Shredder Bobble's better, but like my Panda just wants to play Teferi and Range You Captive, which you should probably play 3 Teferi at least. So like Sentinel over Delver. Third Teferi, then you need 2 spells. Snare. I think you just want to play 3 Spell Pierce. You think you can play like 2 Thought Scours, which are not that good. I would play Thought Scour over Opt though. March. Yeah, you could maybe it has to be March. March is like kind of mid though. Okay, so they terminated the Seasoned Pyromancer and then they undyinged this, which is very fine, I think. How many times has this Ragavan hit my opponent? Not enough times. I think I go Kroxa plus Hearse. I like that the Hearse stops the Seasoned Pyromancer. They just didn't play their land. Alright, so dead 2 Bolt, dead 2 Ragavan. Yeah, you need 2 more spells. Beyond that, I know that's the issue. I mean, you may be able to get it with 20 spells total. I'd probably prefer to have more than that, though, of course. Can't play Deluge. They have Rag. They had no cards in their hand. I just Kroxa'd, but they haven't had Rag for a little while either, I think. I know that game was really hard to follow because of just how, you know, sidetrack we got talking and how slow my opponent's playing. Surgical's like somewhat okay for Fury on Malika Rebirth. Way worse against Grief. They could play our Seasoned. Yeah, they chose to rebuy their Voidwalker instead of play Seasoned. My opponent made tons of sequencing mistakes that game. Let's try one. I'm gonna not be playing, or I think announcing what I'm playing in Atlanta. At least for now, that's my stance. But definitely lots of cards for Brother War. We'll be doing a YouTube video on the topic. I think there's a possibility of the Taking Turns deck returning. Anything's possible, but it would need a new card. Hold on. Change the sideboard real quick for the next league. This is a matchup where it's very difficult to mulligan in. Kroxa is your best card in the matchup. I think I'm going to keep. I know it is not an ideal hand, but one that I don't think you could really afford to put back in this specific matchup. Who's in front of you is new Moto player? Yeah. I'm sorry for complaining so much about him. It's just you know, it's always tough to like stream against like a super new player, where it's just like, you know, things just take so long and you can feel the pace of the stream dying a little bit. Actually, am I supposed to bolt now because of undying effects? I guess I was, but now I'll just play around the Dash Ragavan. More Karuga Lotus Field win? I don't know. We only played one league. We 4-1'd with it. Do I review the set? I don't usually like to do a whole set review. When you do a whole set review, you spend the majority of your time talking about cards that don't matter, which I always found a bit weird. Like huge chunks of constructed set reviews, or I don't know. The way some people don't do it that way, but some people like you know. I guess I should say any names, but some people like just literally name every single card and then talk about every single card and the implications for constructed and limited. And most of the time is spent going, "Oh, this card's not good," and you know. I think for the most part, I like to just like whittle that part out and then talk about the cards that are interesting. Opponent discards 2 lands, 4 cards in hand. Twerker, 18 months, thank you. Just got here, can't wait to see the card. Card by card set review for Modern. Yeah, I'm switching the tier list model that I was doing to the videos now. I had a lot of fun making the video about the last set, Dominaria United, and I'm looking forward to making one about Brothers War. I feel like Brothers War is gonna have more to talk about. Where Dominaria United was like, okay, Leyline Binding is insane. Oh, sorry, I was yielded till instep, but now I have one less card in my yard for Kroxa. But the review for like Dominaria United was, okay, Brothers War is insane. Leyline Binding is insane. And here's like 4 other cards that I think are like gonna be fun and interesting. And then I totally missed Shadow Prophecy. And here's like 20 cards that have like very fringe implications or like will be more casual brew around cards. Any chance Baby Karn will get banned because Wizards need him to have in mind of the artifacts? I mean, there was like a good chance that Karn was already like bannable in Pioneer before Brothers War, and Karn is about to get much better. So I would say there is a reasonable chance Karn gets banned, but you know, in general, Magic players are a little ban crazy, and I tend to try not to be. Binding would be balanced except for the keyword flash. Yeah, it would be a lot more balanced that way. Although, to be some extent, like, every Modern deck is just full of cards that aren't balanced that well, you know? The ones that make it into the Modern are the ones that don't get balanced that well. Although Binding is, like, really egregious. Aber, 14 months, thank you. No Sokenzan. I'm going to try to block the Seasoned Pyromancer. I'm, like, behind in the race, so I think it makes more sense to block. And then if I block, I can potentially Seasoned Pyromancer. Obviously, my opponent knows I have this now, but they also may punt, you know. Could also try to have traded Voidwalkers. Yeah, I think I'll play more of the Conduit deck at some point. I'm just not really sure when. I like the deck a lot. We could maybe get like a poll going for what to play next. I want to do one more of this, but we maybe do a poll instead. Because we could do like this, more of the Mesmeric Orb deck. Okay, definitely want to play this since it's going to be able to block their Seasoned Pyromancer. The Power Conduit deck, Karuga Lotus Field. General, I'm kind of working... Oh, no, damn it. I meant to obviously play the Seasoned Pyromancer. Feels really bad. Can we put 8 key in the poll? Oh, dude, 8 key would be really fun. Brutal misclick, though. Goryo's Reanimator. I think I'm off Goryo's until Blood Moon becomes less popular, unfortunately. 8 key sounds pretty good. Okay, I'll get a poll going. Or maybe I'll just play 8 key. 8 key sounds so fun to play right now. Feels like a good day for it, too. Could play Tamashii for clicks. I don't think anybody besides you would click on Tamashii. I've also never played it, so I'm not really that interested in fumbling through it when I'm fumbling through Rakdos. Play Domain Reanimator, damn I need it. It's very tough to convince me to play Domain Reanimator right now. Scamblade, yeah, I think I want to play the 8 key deck. Which is also kind of a hard deck to play, huh? Okay, we're dead to the Hive of the Eye Terror unless we find a removal spell, or I guess Seasoned Pyromancer doesn't do it because both these have menace. Alright, let's go to game 3. Stock Murktide, baby. 8 key is the artifact heavy deck. It is. Oh yeah, I'll pull up the 8 key. 8 Key is a combo deck we were working on like right before Dominator United. It is one of my favorite decks to play in the format. It may actually be like more well positioned at the moment, where I feel like Artifact Hate has declined in Modern a little bit. But my general impression of this deck, and this deck is definitely going to get a little bit better with Brothers War, getting some new artifacts for Karn's sideboard. But this is a very fast, powerful, resilient, and consistent combo deck, but is certainly weak to efficient Artifact Hate. Binding's actually really bad for this deck too, huh? What if we played more Besaiju's because of Binding? I guess I need to take this Malic Rebirth so that way any black card doesn't let my opponent scam. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'd be able to focus on 8 Key. I don't know why. This deck is always so magical. Also true, there's a lot of Blood Moons. I mean, you don't mind if like they Blood Moon you off of green mana. I think I'm down for like at least the second Beseiju though, because of all the bindings. We can just put one Forest. Is this the Power Stone version? Okay, I don't think Power Stone is a card. Does 8 Key have Saga? Yeah, so like if your Sagas get Blood Moon, it's obviously not ideal, but like one cool thing about this deck when you're talking about like resiliency to Blood Moon is you almost always want to play Saga on turn 1 in this deck, and so like if you're on the play, Blood Moon matters a lot less. Took Liliana. Okay, and then I will take Seasoned Pyromancer for sure. Yeah, this deck will definitely... The Might will be a pretty good upgrade for the deck. I think Red-Black Bard class will be decent. It obviously is it gets a big upgrade with this new card, and it's also true, like, Bard class is a deck that trophies sometimes, so... It's almost impossible to say how good something will be with new cards, but... Yes, this is an upgrade for sure. Upgrades, baby, upgrades. Don't they have 3 swamps? They seem far from Pyro. I mean, their other 2 cards are terrible here. You never ever take Kroxa. Grief is pretty irrelevant. Seasoned Pyromancer is like one of the best cards of the matchup. Yeah. Every green deck that plays Saga should play 1 Might, I think. Okay, punish for discarding the Tourach, I suppose. I was thinking I wanted to push so I could get rid of a Kroxa. Although I think my opponent missed there. No, sorry, we were on the play this game. Ooh, great Ragavan hit. Thinking I asked about Triumph switching Mesmeric Orb combo deck. After thinking more about it, I'm not as confident it is correct. Did I do any thinking? I did minimal thinking on it. Like it was super duper marginal and it wasn't all upside. And so I ended up just like not worrying about it. It is a conversation. Like I do recognize it seemed like I was complaining about like the feedback on mana bases. I love feedback on mana bases because mana bases, like when you build as many decks as I do, it is so like that is the easiest place to make mistakes on. So I always love the feedback on them. But people they just always want to talk about the grindy 3-drops instead. A single copy of Rings and copy of Bridge the main. What did you cut from the main for the Rings? I played a Rings in the sideboard, and like there was never a time that I could tutor for Rings that Paradox Engine wasn't better, or like as good. But it's usually better because you get to like also untap your Scepter and put counters on the Scepter itself. Yeah, some good Monkey hits, Monkey's always a bit better in the mirror match. Would I be interested in trying Grixis Shadow with Underworld Breach? You have to sell me a bit more. If it's just Breach as a value card, I would imagine that Kroxa is likely the card I'd prefer to play as like your Graveyard Matters card in Grixis Shadow. But if you have some more tech with it, like Manamorphose, and you swear it's good. Are artifacts the most broken card type? Yeah, I think pretty objectively. Are 6 of the Power 9 are artifacts. And then also Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vaults, Time Vault. I think I'm supposed to grief here. I'm only missing 1 damage because I can crew the hearse, and then... Why did grief not get a void counter? It did. So I'm missing something. Alright, that's good enough for them. So 3-2 with rock. Pretty boring, pretty standard. Okay, I am very excited to play 8 keys, so let's play 8 keys.